Hello and welcome to this episode of ZED Talks, where I'm joined by the fabulous Ali Stewart of Ali Stewart & Co. So I'm not going to tell you about Ali because Ali's going to tell you about Ali, but the topic that we have today is one that fills my heart. It is about asking the question of yourself, who am I? Why am I here? What's my my purpose? What, about me, understanding the self. And so Ali has a career that's steeped in this, and she's going to help us to explore how we do this, certainly through her business and her program. So welcome, Ali. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here, Zoe. Thank you.
I really am. And Ali, so for anyone that's listening or watching, Ali and I met maybe about a year or 18 months ago now through a mutual connection. And we have similarities in common in terms of we serve a sector that's the same. We're, people orientated. And one of the things that Ali brings me and has been really privileged, I've been really privileged to have the experience of, is getting some insights into myself. Ali's afforded me the luxury to get to know me and her equally, and also understand a little bit about what she does. So I've learned a lot about myself, and Ali brings me an amazing calm energy in my very often chaotic and busy world. So Ali, over to you to give a little intro into you. And wherever you feel the starting point is in this discussion.
Thank you so much, Zoe. It's brilliant to be here because you're always so exciting to talk to. I am Ali Stewart, executive leadership coach. I started my business 21 years ago on the back of being accredited in this beautiful insights discovery tool. Now, insights discovery is a psychometric tool, and psychometrics seek to understand the mind. And of course, with the mind, there is no right and wrong because we are all unique. Every single person on the planet is unique. And so, although I'm accredited in a great many psychometric tools, when I went on this accreditation, it blew me away, and I set up my business on the back of it. Ali Stewart & Co, coaching you to achieve and grow. We have evolved since then, but that's still the essence of what we do.
Wow, 21 years. I'm sure that those changes have been very significant over time, and especially now where we're in a new evolution, right? So let's say, and maybe we'll touch on that, maybe we won't. But let's start with self. Let's start with where we, what is it when someone comes to you, Ali, and I'm presuming it's more enterprises and teams. When someone comes to you, is there a theme or a generic view of what people come to you with, what presenting problem they have? Because we all know as coaches that when people come with a problem, it's never really what's expressed, it's way beyond that. There's something else, there's another root cause. So is there sort of common themes that come to you with people saying this is our challenge?
Mm-hmm. Quite often when I'm working with teams, it tends to be lack of communication, lack of motivation, lack of engagement, people rubbing each other up the wrong way. There's a lack of cohesion, lack of trust, perhaps. So when I work with teams, they're typically wanting a beautiful team day to help unite the team and get greater rapport and team working going. If I'm working with individuals, it could be a whole range of different issues, usually to do with limiting beliefs and sense of who they are. They need help to discover their own talents.
And we know that is such a journey. Like, to discover self is, the self-inquiry that it takes. And I think there's courage and bravery that it takes. I'm thinking of me to we at the moment. Like, yes. I'm me before I'm with or a part of anything else or another. So I have to understand me quite deeply in order to understand where I become in a we, whether that's a personal relationship, a team, because there's often teams in teams in teams in teams, if you see what I mean. So we're a part of a family, which is a team. We're a part of a social network, which is a team. We're a part of a professional team, maybe many. Could you perhaps talk us through like what that entails, how you start? So let's just say an enterprise comes to you for a team and they kind of go, okay, here's our problem. It's really around communication. What do you do with that? How do you then receive that and sort of propose what that step would be? What does a day look like with you?
Well, first of all, to access this beautiful tool, they complete an online questionnaire, and it's not normally very difficult to convince them that that's what they need, because generally I give the key stakeholder a profile by them completing an online questionnaire, and then they go, oh wow, yes, I can see that my team is going to love this. Then it's a question of getting the whole team to complete, and of course some people are very skeptical. They don't know what the leader's motives are, but generally we get them there by fair means or foul, by either the leader or somebody talking to them or me talking to them. And then everybody has an individual profile. We put everybody together on one wheel together as a picture to show them this is where you all are. We have a floor mat, 12-foot floor mat of that wheel, and they can go and stand, you know, when we're in a workshop together in those positions. So it, you know, some types are opposite. It's going to be harder to connect. Some types next to each other can have a moan. You know, some types in the same type don't like each other because they're too like them.
Yes.
They don't like their own traits. So it's really a beautiful tool for starting the conversations and understanding who am I. And normally when people receive their profile, they say, have you been in my bathroom with me? This is so true.
Yeah, it's very confronting, isn't it?
Yes.
And I know that I've also been through this experience with you, which is, so I'm smiling because I think any leader or self-aware leader, somebody that's been leading others, whether that be big or small groups, I think it can be often very difficult to manage emotions, emotional regulation for self, holding space for another team or a group of people can be very hard. And even I looked at that and thought, oh my gosh, this is kind of like really, this is like, this is slightly uncomfortable. And I thought I knew a lot about myself. So having done Myers-Briggs, having done DISC, having done Hogan, having done all sorts of assessments, if you like, I was still very confronted and comforted in equal measure, I might say. So even though confronting, this was brilliant because what it highlighted, a specific part on the report was around unconscious versus conscious and how these parts show. And you can probably explain a little bit more about that, Ali, better than I can. And I just know that what I observed and what I took away from it is that I am pretty authentic. I show up. So what my authenticity is I'm displaying close to that in the report, which no other report or assessment has ever given me that type of information. And I think could you maybe zone in a little bit on that? Because I think that for me was like just my mind blown and light bulb moment all at once.
Yes, I absolutely can. I was a Myers-Briggs practitioner and a practitioner in other things, but I used to find when I would deliver a Myers-Briggs day, everybody on the day went, wow. But then 6 months later, I would go in and say, okay, what's your Myers-Briggs type? And they wouldn't be able to tell me. Or if they could tell me, I'm an ESTJ, I'd say, okay, what do you do with an INFP then? And they go, oh, I don't know. So insights encompasses Myers-Briggs. It encompasses many of the other tools and says, look, there's all these possibilities. There's not just 16, there's loads and loads and loads of different possibilities. And by showing your conscious and your less conscious is super cool, because we go to our less conscious under pressure. We have to know about it. And most people don't really get it. And it tells you where you go under pressure, and it tells you what you need to do about it. And it tells you, also the energy you're having to put in from less conscious to conscious. And is that difficult or easy for you?
Which plays into introvert and extrovertism,
Yes.
which is brilliant. So this is a really key moment for anyone listening and perhaps watching. We all have a mask or a persona that we present to the world, because we want to either be loved, we want to be accepted, we want to be approved of. We have social masks because that's, you know, the id, the super ego, the ego is all a part of our kind of like unconscious mind, which not many people might understand or know about. You don't need to become a super expert on it, but you do need to become a super expert on yourself.
Absolutely.
And so for me, we call it, lots of people use different buzzwords in a moment. So I'll say when you're triggered, when you are charged with energy, and we can be triggered in euphoric moments of like high energy and excitement, and, you know, things that, you know, if you've just won the lottery, you might go into an absolute, you're triggered into a very high energetic state of almost hysteria. And then when we're triggered negatively, this evokes anger or frustration or what we might perceive as a negative emotion. I don't particularly like to label positive and negative. They're just emotions. How we respond to them and how we react to them creates the negative or positive connotation in my world. So when people see, or your experience of people understanding this ability to be authentic, I'll call it the most authentic they can be in alignment with their unconscious, what do most people understand how this works or happens? Are they very curious about it when they see the insights, or does it go over their head a lot? How do you help land that? Because for some people that's really unusual, let's say.
It is. I think because the tool is so good. I mean, it is so good. I wish it was my own. I wish I'd invented it, but it is so good. I find when you take people through it slowly and you explain each graph, they get it, and they go quiet and they go within for a minute, and then they start jabbering. Because it's so exciting. It's just so exciting to see it all come to life and in color. And people remember color because the mind thinks in color and pattern. So it's highly memorable. It's highly engaging. It creates a buzz for people.
Yes. And I know that I'm quite an excitable character myself, or at least I can be. And I remember getting this and wanting to know more. And the preset of that is for those of you that don't know, I'm a psychologist, and that does not mean that I know everything. That doesn't at all. It just means that I've got expertise, information in studying academic around certainly transpersonal psychology. So transpersonal psychology, for those that don't know what that means, it is to transcend beyond the ego. It is metaphysical and it is esoteric. And this is everything about, it is not about the matter, the human, you know, we have a body, a physicality to this 3D human life, but I'm more interested in what is not explainable, what is not able to be tangible, and we can hold it. You can hold a brain. I'm more interested in how people, I mean, common psychology talks about perception, sensation, but it doesn't really talk about, or in a traditional term, it doesn't really explain energy and imagination. It doesn't explain anything that is metaphysical. So my belief is when you can bring these two worlds together, you can have a thorough understanding of that there is a soul. So people talk about mind, body, spirit, soul. I talk about how does the soul, right? The soul is not a 3D thing. It is born over maybe a period of time. It also depends on your beliefs. It also depends on if you have certain understanding of the world and what you live in. So this may not resonate with everybody, and it may trigger some people in something of thoughts in some way. But this is where it becomes super interesting, of like understanding your unconscious and your conscience. This for me is the basis. And Ali, how did you get into this? How did you become? Can I dig into what was your moment in time, or why you got into this 21 years ago?
Well, before that, in 1990, I desperately needed a job. Just the way life had landed, it wasn't a happy state at the particular time in 1990. I desperately needed a job. I was a single mother. I needed a job. I happened to get a job with a chartered occupational psychologist called Dr. Derek Biddle, who lives in Poole, quite near me. And he wanted me as his PA. And very quickly he said to me, "You understand people better than I do. I'm going to send you to the British Psychological Society to be accredited in a load of tools." He said, "I'm really good at organizational change. I get a little bit bored when people are completing their questionnaires. I want you to be able to write people's profiles when I bring them back to the office." And that's what I did. I physically wrote people's profiles, looking at 16PF, Myers-Briggs, FIRO-B, all these old tools. And I used to get a picture of people in my mind. I'd never met them, but I could see them coming to life through the questionnaires. And I would give Derek the profile and he'd go and feed back. And then when we came across Insights in 2003, and now a computer does this, I was extremely skeptical. I thought, how can a computer capture a person the way I'm doing? But it was so good. And I'd been on so many accreditations, and I just thought it was another accreditation and another tool to add to our kit bag. It blew me away. This profile is so personal and so accurate. It's billions to one that people will get exactly the same profile. You know, you've seen the graphs. People don't get exactly the same percentages of color going on in each graph. There's little variations here and there, which changes the profile.
That's incredible. And so how's it impacted your life?
Well, it changed my life, because at the time I got accredited, Derek was retiring. He's in his 80s now, late 80s. So he was retiring. The management consultancy we built was changing. My children were growing. And I said, I need to go and do this now. And the people at the office said, no, we need you to be the company secretary, office manager. No, I'm done with that. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach. That's what I always wanted to be when I was a little girl, a teacher. And here I am now, teaching every day, but in a different way than I ever imagined. So I set up my own company on the 1st of July 2004, just to be able to coach with the Insights tool. I got coaching accreditations along the way.
And I know that you hold the distribution, like you are the owner of this of Insights for the UK distribution. So you
No. I wish.
Oh, okay. Good to be corrected. You hold some kind of.
I'll tell you.
Yes.
So Insights have their own direct clients, and they use some of us licensed practitioners to help them deliver.
Yes.
But they also have this army of partners, as they call them, who are, there's lots of distributors like me around the country. I can't claim to be the UK #1, but almost. But as a distributor, I've got attached licensed practitioners, both licensed practitioners who can go and deliver and sell to anybody, and client practitioners that just deliver inside their own organization.
Got it.
So I look after all of them.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, and I like the reason why I picked up on that is because I believe that we are in a very saturated world of people talking about what they can do very freely.
Yes.
And there is no regulation. So I'm talking about coach. And again, this might trigger some people because anyone can call themselves a coach. And
you can have an hour's coaching and be called a coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I disagree with people, because I think that there are brilliant people who are coaches that have not received any coaching education.
Yes.
I do believe that there are amazing people out there that, you know, have switched into coaching. But I think that we have to, so my prediction that this word is going to become, you know, we used to talk about gratitude and being grateful. Now it's become like, and the word blessing, like I'm very blessed, I'm very grateful. And we maybe overuse that word slightly now, in my opinion, my opinion. I believe the word discernment is going to start to become a buzzword. And before it gets that big, I want to say that this is the time period where we have to, every individual has to discern, in my view, what is right and wrong. So for those of you who don't know what discernment means, it means to purely judge what is right and wrong for you. And with what we have access through AI, through Google, through our computers and the internet, we can access so many things that are true and not true, which is forming our opinions about lots of things.
Yeah.
And I would say with anyone that the discernment you need to default to is your inner voice, the inner compass, the inner sat navigation. But with a prerequisite, you've got to know yourself really well.
Yes, and you've got to be able to trust that compass.
And so when we say you trust yourself, it has to be an implicit yes, because when you do, you can then discern what your body, and it is that sat navigation portal, is telling you, and your body will tell you something is right, and it will tell you if it's wrong. And it's very clear. But if you're not tapped in or tuned in to your inner voice, that's where the challenge. So I meet lots of people when I say to them, do you trust yourself? And they kind of, there's a pause, and I'm like, well, that's a big fat no, isn't it? So coming back to then the insights, what's the so let's say you've worked with somebody and they've had this delivered to them, in terms of they've done the assessment, they've had the coaching session with you. What's the next step for them? Do you kind of like do you have a program around it that's that carries on helping them to integrate that into their world and life and business or career? Or is it kind of like this is now up to you to go ahead and now start to work with this?
No, well, what I find with our clients, some just want to delve deeper into insights. We have a 12-week blended learning program for them, with a mixture of online and in-person sessions for them, to go deeper and learn more about insights and how it can help you. Other people need more skill building. So we've got 2 programs, the Pioneer, which is all about building the skills in you. Now you understand who you are. Sometimes people understand, but they're a little bit unsure. They're not confident. They're not assertive enough. They don't have that gravitas yet. So the Pioneer helps them with the gravitas, with learning the emotional intelligence and that self-regulation and everything that goes with that, with learning how to question and listen properly, with writing their own CV or career plan, with learning about being strategically aware in business, not just tactically and operationally. Doesn't matter whether you're the cleaner or the chief exec, everybody can have strategic business awareness. So to me, that then moves into skill building with the Pioneer. And then if you're remotely concerned with leading others, then you need the liberator, which is all about how you lead and develop others to high performance consistently and beautifully.
Ali, I can make a bit of a prediction. So we're here in this AI era, which I'm going to go back to something you just said, which was there was skepticism when a computer started to prepare these analysis based on these reports. Here we are, maybe 30 years later, right? So here we are again on this other technological verge. We're on the, what do we call it? Precipice or whatever it is.
Precipice?
That's the one. We're on the edge of literally this sort of coming into effect, and I almost want to predict, because I feel so strongly about this, the human is going to be frontline and center in a very short space of time. So this is what I believe, that we have generational types in our workplace, from a baby boomer to a Gen Z at the moment, all of which have very different qualities. Now, I know that I am terribly generalizing, and I don't mean to put anybody in a box, but we are in a society where we are conditioned somewhat. And we do have trends about our behavior and what we're switched on by and all of that, which I firmly believe. And I look at these and study them by myself. And I look at different generations and their strengths and what they're not brilliant at. And I see a whole wave of soft skill missing in Gen Z.
In every gen, in all of them.
In all, but if you look at Gen X and Y in particular, which are main leadership at the moment, right? So the large majority of sort of middle management to executive management, decision makers, fall into this category. I'm not excluding Gen Z here, but it's just the oldest Gen Z is 28 at time of recording this. So what we're seeing is that this is non-digital natives who understand the value of picking up a phone and having a conversation and transacting in a very human way. Whereas Gen Z have been mostly brought up with, and especially Alpha, they can swipe before they can talk. Their medium of communication is a device. It's not necessarily a human. And couple that with that families are now more broken than ever. Okay, so again, I'm not judging anyone for this. I'm from a broken home too. Broken in the sense that there is not a traditional setup. So because people might say to me, what's broken mean? And I'm like, yeah, I mean in the sense that I've experienced. So parents now no longer together. And in this world that we're sort of seeing this expedited technological movement, it puts the device or the computer at the front of everything. And so there's a lot more comfort with Gen Z to communicate through devices. And now we also have this wonderful time period that I want to, almost forget, called the pandemic. Wonderful in the sense that it brought a very big change for a lot of people. It was great for me. It wasn't great for many people, where they had a lot of change in their life, from loss of a person, a job, money, a home, like lots of things happened, and lots of bad things happened to me in that time. But I look upon that very favorably, because I had to look at myself. I had to look and be with me in this kind of isolation. But for a Gen Zer, going through that was a social backlash for them, because of the age group, specifically going the ages between like 14, girls specifically, or the gender of girls identified as girls between 13 and 16 will particularly hit harder. I won't exclude another gender. I won't exclude boys or them, they, non-binary, but I will say that there was a particular time which had such an impact on this particular age group. And because of that, we're now much more socially awkward. There's a lot more social anxiety. So this is where I believe this is going to come into its own. Within the next 5 years, Ali, I believe that you will be busier than you've ever been in your career. That's my prediction.
I totally get that. And when Derek and I first wrote The Pioneer and The Liberator, it took a long time. Years and years and years of refining, testing, going again, refining it. We had access to thousands of leaders in companies and teams, because we worked with some amazing organizations like Gillette, Vodafone, General Motors, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. We had loads of people we had access to test stuff on. But every single year, I say this is more relevant than it was last year. And everything we're teaching, the problem is the worldwide education system has not yet caught up.
Yes.
People, children are taught knowledge and direct skills. That's what we measure in the UK in the national curriculum. We don't measure leadership and interpersonal skills. If we did, it would be an awful lot better. So now all of the generations currently in post are there because of their skill, their entrepreneurial flair, or they've been there the longest. It's not because they've got an innate ability to lead and develop the best in people or understand themselves.
Yes. Now, if we look at taking a bit of a sidestep, so I'm probably going to go off a bit of a cliff here. I'm okay to be sort of not to intentionally wind anyone up. I do see some correlation here around behaviour with. So McKinsey Health Institute started talking about spiritual health in around 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It shocked me. It surprised me, because I was like, wait, what? What does this mean? I've always been very curious about the word spirituality. What does it actually mean? And when I distinguish between religion and spirituality, because they're not the same thing.
No,
I had the misconception that they were. And I am not what I would call religious in any way, but I believe that I'm highly spiritual. Because I'm connected to something bigger than myself. I see,
yes.
feel and hear something much bigger than me,
Yes.
but it's not necessarily God, or the version of God that others may believe in. But I do think there is an energy, a force, because why would our nature and our oceans be governed by galactic and cosmo activity? So there has to be some energetic field. What I come to know is there is an energetic field. We live in it, quantum.
Yeah.
And so as I kind of think about us as electric, because we are electricity, essentially we're made of electrons and water and matter. So I kind of feel like we are communication vessels. That's what we do. We receive and we give, these transmit, in other words. So there's gazillions of us around the world transmitting all different energies, receiving different energies. And so with that in mind, I'm seeing a lot of, and I think this is social media, there's a good side. So there's duality in everything. There's a light and a dark, a plus and a minus. Everything that we do, cause and effect, everything that we say or do has an opposite. So if we think about that, as communication vessels, what are we truly transmitting and receiving into our bodies, into our minds? What are we consuming all the time? And how do we use that? I don't think that we're conscious about it, is my point.
That's true. I was going to say some people are much better and much more open to that transmission and receiving than other people are. Other people say, that's rubbish, let me get on with my job.
Totally. And I think that there's a lot more awakening happen. Even the word awakening has started to trend a bit more like I'm more awakened. And it can mean very different things to different people.
Yes.
But I think that what you do is help people, leaders, to be more awakened to themselves.
Yes, that's exactly what we do. Exactly what we do. Because all of the principles we're teaching, like positive regard and genuineness, especially for everybody, it has to be applied to self first.
Yeah.
How much positive regard do you give yourself? How genuine are you with yourself? And stuff. So everything has to be applied here. We talk about personal power. You can't really teach anybody, but at some point, you know, by getting some of the principles, suddenly they're growing in their personal power. And it just, by building skill, starting with self, with insights, and then building skill, we can see people growing, we can see people awakening. Sometimes, you know, we've got, well, there's 6 chapters in the current Liberator book. Sometimes it takes to chapter 5 for people to really get it. You know, I take some leaders through, like, you know, underwriters in Threadneedle Street who are so much in their head because of their work. You know, when we were delivering the training, they were saying we were making their heads hurt. And I would just say,
Wow.
that's great. Just come back tomorrow. Please come back tomorrow. And they all did. But for them, it was a completely alien way of thinking. And, but, you know, they're skeptical, they fight it until the end of chapter 5. And then they say, we get it now, Ali, can we start again? And then we go again and get to the end.
Yes, and what this has reminded me of, and I'm so curious about your opinion on this, we had World Mental Health Day on Friday, and I am all about positive mental health. I've been through my own struggles, had a huge mental breakdown and had to go into care for it. So some years ago, not recent. And I think that we all, through circumstances in life, experience hardship through whatever, you know, we all do at some point. And so therefore our mental health is slightly more fragile than it might be on a, you know, it depends on if everything's going brilliantly versus everything not going brilliantly. And I had a father of 2 young girls. We had a conversation on the train coming home. I'm coming home from London on Wednesday, and he says, I've got to be home on Friday because the girls, it's World Mental Health Day at school. Now, the little girls are 7 and 8. And he was a bit cross because he said, I don't really get it. I don't understand it. Like, what are they teaching? And they're being taught to put labels in and maybe have excuses as children. And, you know, I didn't disagree. I didn't agree because I didn't know what I actually wanted to either share and I had to sit with it. And it was only until yesterday that I'm reading through LinkedIn and seeing a bit more about mental health awareness. And I had this one thought, which is, I do think it's brilliant that we bring it to the fore. I do think it's brilliant that it's happening in schools because education system is very archaic. However, there's one very big flaw in this. The parents have to be educated on mental health and understanding what their children are learning. Because if the parents are not emotionally available or emotionally aware or emotionally intelligent, how the hell do those little girls go home from school to a parent that says, oh, it's a load of rubbish?
Yeah.
How is that making it better?
Yes.
So I had this kind of like, I'm not sure that that's a good thing or not until you've kind of tried and tested with the parents. And then as I knew we were having this conversation, I was almost like, the world needs more of Ali.
Thanks.
Needs more of understanding self. Why do I think the way I do? Why do I react the way I do? Why do I behave? Why do I care that this happens? Why do I worry about that? Why? And then I realized maybe why is not the question anymore. Maybe it's like, what is the alternative? How do I want to behave? How do I want to act? How do I want to imagine life? And so this day was like, I was really percolating in my mind over the weekends thinking, and when you said emotional intelligence, I was like, boom, there it is. There it is. We all, and it's not just, I think as a leader, as a self-leader, like
absolutely. That's the part.
You don't have kids and you don't lead people at work, you have to lead yourself.
Yes.
And when I
Yes.
say to people, who are the top people that you love in your life? And they go, oh, my partner, my child, my children, my parents. And I go, well, where are you?
Yes.
Aren't you the first one? Like, don't you love you first? Like, you need to nourish and deal with you first. And people will say to me, yeah, Zoe, you don't have children. You're not married. That's all right for you. And I'm like, well, before I come into partnership or had children, which I know I haven't, but you have, there was you.
And there still is me now. They're gone.
There still is you. So I'm curious about your perspective, like having given some thoughts around like mental health day, and perhaps you've got a view on it and perhaps you haven't. What would messaging be to parents that maybe don't understand about mental health? What would you say to them?
Well, I did a little post for mental health awareness
I sure have a look.
on Friday, and it was a little ism that my mother brought me up with. So if I was moody or anything, she would say, take a deep breath and think happy thoughts. And as a little girl, you might not want to take a deep breath right then and think happy thoughts because you're really angry and muddled about something. Or she'd say, go and splash your face with cold water. And to me, that's kind of change state. You know, just go and do something different for a minute. Take a deep breath, think happy thoughts, and then you'll feel a lot better. So it's just these little things that, you know, mental health is not, there's various degrees.
Yes.
And we can help ourselves an awful lot by the minute we find ourselves having negative thoughts about us. I mean, we have to watch our self-talk.
Yes.
Because our self-talk is often not very kind, it's not very nice. So we have to start being kind to self. We are only human. We get things wrong. We don't always say the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we're a horrible person. It just means, well, Émile Coué, French writer, I love his quote, every day, in every way, I'm better. Which gives you a chance just to reset. It doesn't mean the end of the world that this thing I did has just happened. It just means if I wake up tomorrow, I get a chance to do it much better tomorrow.
Wow. That's a very powerful note to come to a close. The time that we have spent has been brilliant. And Ali, you know that I could talk to you forever, and maybe we'll have another opportunity to continue. But this is such an important conversation, and I wish for others to have these conversations, hopefully with you, or start the conversation with somewhere else, because this is very thought-provoking in terms of you have to lead self, and to know you've got to ask those questions and get validation of those questions to see where you are right now, and therefore how can you be better tomorrow. And that's partly self-inquiry, but there's also taking action on that, and radical, I call it radical accountability for oneself. I can only own what I think, what I do, what I say, and how I behave. Everything else I'm not in control of. So the more I can be in control of me, the more means that I can have a successful outcome in whatever I'm thinking, doing, being, whatever it is. But Ali, thank you so much for being here. You know, I have enormous respect for you and what you do. And I really hope that anyone reading this gets to know you a bit more, or watching this, should I say, gets to listening, even not reading. I'll get that out right in a second. Please connect with Ali, have a conversation. That's the beauty of having conversations. We can share in about something, whether it's you within your team, whether it's you as a leader in an organization, or maybe it's for your own personal development, because we should never stop learning. I really firmly believe that. Connect with Ali, find out more about Insights, the Pioneer, the Liberator. These are programs that have stood the test of time. It's not going anywhere. It's going to become more important. And the more we get behind our own development and nurturing ourselves to be better humans, the longer living, more successful, happy and fulfillment we'll have. It's that simple. Stop chasing money, chase your own education, chase yourself. That's
Yeah.
what I say.
And just have a look, and then if you don't like it, change it, and then we have
Only
the
can
tools
change
to
you.
help you change.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
Ali, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for your time today. And hopefully our listeners have enjoyed this, and maybe there's a few sparks of thoughts that are happening right now. And that's brilliant. We'd love to hear what your version of what you thought about the show and what things come up for you. But please hit the subscribe button and follow our journey. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you, Zoe. Take care.